future residential and commercial growth of the island. However, it has to be pointed out, and there will be a report coming up in the next few weeks concerning the inn application, that this does trigger these extra requirements. And we should all be aware of what choices can be made in that. And there is reference that there are some buildings. They say that as soon as we have 5 buildings in the community, that threshold will be reached, the tipping point, if you will. There's a couple of buildings in Artisan Square that are actually over 3 stories. There's one with a partial 4th floor throughout. There's another one that's got a partial 4th floor in the basement. We can access those areas right now, but as the growth gets bigger, both in the Cove, the Artisan Square, the water supplies may not be adequate for part of it. So there's a lot of issues to be dealt with. And, I'd be happy to answer your question, clarify.
I just wonder, is Brian, is the question that it's the size of building?
The size and height.
And height. So civic facilities could actually fall into this tipping point as well because of the size of the building.
Well, that's true, although I see a higher risk level when you've got people over 19 in the building. That, to me, is the big concern. It's a life safety issue. If the civic facility catches fire, we'll do our best to put it out and get people out. But when you have overnight guests, and there could be a potential of close to 30 people in that building, I gather, that is a concern.
Thank you.
And John, can I address directly on this?
Could I just briefly respond to this? Obviously, the inn development application is mine, and I just wanted to ask a specific question. You mentioned that there is actually a capped number of buildings before this triggers the need for apparatus, according to the Fire Underwriter Survey. Does the inn in itself trigger the need for aerial apparatus?
Well, I think that's a decision that council will have to ultimately address. It's one more point that's going to be reached, and the community has to make that decision. If it was a 3-story building, or if it was non-combustible construction, there are ways that those concerns could be addressed. This 5 choice of buildings is, for example, in that underwriter's report, they indicate that the building center is one of the 5.
Yes.
Rivendell is not in there. It's actually got a partial 4th floor on it. We're at the point now that any one of these buildings could result in that
Brian,
needed requirement.
we should set this report aside due to the fact that the trust report has not been tabled with council at this point.
Okay.
And then this discussion is better held with council with information in front of us. And we should get on the community over other community issues.
Fair comment. Thank you, Brian. We've got a question here from Sally Freeman. And the question is, for staff who deal with subdivision applications, how do you determine the order in which these are dealt with? And I think Brian wears another hat, Chief Admin Officer, but he's also our Subdivision Improvement Officer. So can I give that to Brian or finance staff?
I've just been appointed the approving officer in late January, February of this year. I have quite a bit of experience in the field, and right now we're currently reviewing the process to establish a little clear line as to how the paper should flow, and so that we can process and deal with applications in a much more timely manner. So that's currently under review, and I recognize there are 4 or 5 right now that are very important to people financially who have had their applications in, and we're hoping within the next few weeks to start moving some of those to conclusion.
So that's how you're going to do it in the future. How was it done in the past?
How was it done in the past?
Michael, by the way, is our Deputy Approving Officer.
So I've been doing that job ever since Mexicali was created, and probably over the 7 or 8 years, I've dealt with, I'm going to say something like 30 to 40 subdivision applications. Those of you who are here who aren't familiar with subdivision, it'd be interesting to know that of the 30 or 40, I would say in the last 2 years, there may have been 5 or 6 that actually have come in. But there is a backlog to ones that have been in for a while, and we continue to work at all of them. So what we've done in the past is when someone makes an application, we start a process. And the process involves getting comment from various parties and then responding back to the applicants. Every subdivision, however, from the one where you take one lot into 2 to a Cowan Point situation where you're actually creating multiple lots, they all have their complexities. And quite frankly, in some cases, when you have one lot going to 2, it's sometimes more complex than where you have a piece of raw land going into 10 or 20 lots. But we deal with them all, and the timing of it is not entirely in our control. Because what happens in subdivision, we are interacting with the subdividor. And the subdividor, the applicant, actually has to work with his or her consultants, whether they be the subdivider's engineers, surveyors, environmental consultants, etc. So we don't have the control of the timing. And so some applicant who is kind of a professional subdivider, who has more money in their pockets to spend on hiring the consultants, get the work done faster than other applicants who aren't professional subdividers, who have to kind of find their way through the system, get enough money perhaps to hire a consultant to do these things longer. I don't ever consider, well, that was more important than that one. I work at all of them at the same time, and every subdivider works at their own level as well. So that's how we've done it in the past, and we just try to keep moving it forward. And you and I have talked many times on subdivision, and what I try to do, quite frankly, is facilitate and work with the subdividers as much as possible, especially for those who don't have experience in it, to help them through it so that the process is as painless as possible. But I know I'm not completely successful in that, because for some people it is a difficult process. But we're always there to help and to facilitate.
But I would like to say, I don't have any issue with Michael. You've always been really open and been able to explain why there's been a delay or whatever's happened. But with various people on staff, starting back with Gene McKay, I mean, this goes back to ancient history, I could never get a sense of where my file was and how it was getting dealt with. Right to the last time, which was this week, that I talked to someone on staff about my file, that I talked to them 3 times about in the last month, and that they told me that they were going to get to it very, very soon. And the last time I talked to them, they said they didn't know when they would ever get to it because of lawsuits.
Brian?
Yes, Sally, I've spoken to
Yeah, no,
her. Yes, and we're expecting that your file will be one of the ones that I was speaking about that will be coming to conclusion probably next week.
Okay, can I just stick this in too? Are there lawsuits pending to the municipality?
There's one.
Thank you.
No, not to do with subdivision. That's not subdivision.
Yeah, another issue.
Well, yeah, this is another part of my job, to avoid lawsuits.
Keep working on that. Andrew, your thoughts?
I'm going to go stand over there. My name is Andrea Kaufman, and I'm proud to be achieving my 2nd anniversary here on this extraordinary island. And I feel very honored to be a member of this community. I feel like I'm beginning to get to know faces and personalities and issues a little more deeply. And I had the particular position at a meeting in about